And welcome back to Sports on Tap. It's our Ohio High School football coverage, covering the Greater Cleveland Conference, the Southwestern Conference, and the Suburban League Conference. So want to welcome everybody back. It's Week 2 recaps here, and we finished the Greater Cleveland Conference and the Southwestern Conference. Now let's jump into the Suburban League, the National Division, with Ed Dick. And Ed, how did it go in the Suburban League over there?
Week 2 of the non-conference slate starts at Garfield Heights, where the Bulldogs hosted the Brecksville Broadview Heights Bees. Now the Bees graduated a tremendous quarterback in Luke Sternad last year, but freshman quarterback Joe Labas is looking like a more than suitable replacement. Labas connected for 2 long touchdown passes to senior wide receiver Sam Wigloos.
It's 2 weeks in a row. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no kidding.
2 weeks in a row that's happened.
Yes. And fullback Mike Rose for 56 and 47 yards, respectively. Senior Alec Buckley rushed for 3 touchdowns, pulling away for a 34-20 win over the Bulldogs. With the win, the Bees improved to 2-0, and they will travel to 0-2 Willoughby South. Garfield Heights drops to 1-1. They will travel to 2-0 Bedford. All right, the Cuyahoga
Didn't the Bees are 1-1? Now they lost to Olmsted Falls in Week 1.
Oh,
the Bees.
We covered that
1-1.
game.
You did. Where did I get that from?
I know, but that's. Do you want we talked about?
Yeah, I must have been. I mean, maybe I'm having a cocktail when I was doing these stats. So the Bees improved to 1-1.
No, he said cough medicine because he's getting over with Sean's getting over.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Although it's making me question my stats too, so I got to reread them.
Well, I'm probably just not going to finish the rest of the subject, the rest of this. So this is fantastic. Anyways, Cuyahoga Falls, they attempted to get it back in the winning track against visiting Norton. The Panthers got a 3-touchdown effort from junior quarterback Nate Dobbin en route to a 20-7 victory. The Black Tigers did get on the board with a 60-yard touchdown reception from Dejan Brazil for their only score. Cuyahoga Falls is 0-2. They will host Barberton next week. Norton improves to 1-1. They will travel to 2-0 Mogador. All right, got one right. How about that? All right. All right, Macedonia-Nordonia, they hosted Peninsula Woodridge as both teams are going for their first win of the 2017 campaign. Woodridge jumped on Nordonia early as the Bulldogs amassed a 26-7 first-half lead, using the 3-handed rushing attack of King Sanders, Robert Singletary, and Spencer Robinson. Nordonia's Robbie Levick did his best to keep the Knights in the game. He passed for 337 yards, but it was not enough as Woodridge pulled away for the 46-36 victory. Donnie Wisniak, receiver for Nordonia, caught 4 passes for 137 yards. Nordonia drops to 0-2. They're going to travel to 1-1 Mayfield in Week 3. Woodridge is 1-1. They're going to host 0-2 Chagrin Falls. This is a game that I believe Josh talked about a little bit about earlier from the Strongsville side. But the 1-0 Hudson Explorers played host to another 1-0 team in the Strongsville Mustangs. Explorers quarterback Colt Pellet had a big night starting off the scoring with a 37-yard touchdown pass to Dawson Werby, the first of his 2 touchdown receptions for the game. Hudson went up 14-0 early, did not relinquish the lead despite the Mustangs at one time cutting the deficit to 28-21 in the third quarter, and the Explorers pulled away for a 35-21 victory. Pellet finished with 3 passing touchdowns, completing 14 of 20 passes for 271 yards. Pellet also rushed for a touchdown to ice the game for Explorers in the fourth. Hudson's Dawson Werby caught touchdown passes of 37 and 40 yards. Greg Maley hauled in his 61-yard touchdown pass, and Colin Paltani scored from 25 yards out on a pass from backup quarterback Liam Brennan. Hudson's defense also intercepted Strongsville quarterback Johnny Major twice. Hudson, they are now 2-0. They're going to visit Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium to take on the 2-0 Kent-McKinley Bulldogs. Strongsville, they will fall to 1-1. They will host 0-2 Kenton Central Catholic next week. All right, the North Royalton Bears, 1-0. They travel to Byers Field to take on the 1-0 Parma Senior Redmond. This game was absolutely dominated by the Bears as they jumped out to a 24-0 lead at the half, and they did not look back. Senior running back Zach Antonio rushed 8 times for 55 yards in a score. He also had a 61-yard punt return for a touchdown. Senior running back Matt Griffey, he rushed 5 times for 65 yards and a score. And senior wide receiver Miles Sternad caught 3 passes for 64 yards and a score. all adding up to a 40-8 win over over Parma. Credit the Bears defense for holding down an offense that had previously put up 49 points in Week 1 in Parma's victory over Lincoln West. North Royalton, they are now 2-0. They're going to host 2-0 Medina Highland in a nice neighborhood and Suburban League crossover contest. Parma is 1-1. They're going to host 0-2 Cleveland John Marshall in the third of 3 straight home games to start their season.
That's a big game coming up this Friday, Highland, North Royalton.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it could be telling, especially with North Royalton. I mean, starting off the year at 2-0. I mean, if they could compete and maybe pull off an upset against Highland, I mean, who knows what the Bears can do. And they're a young team. You know, I think they're going to go through some ups and downs this season, but, you know, maybe they can learn from that and keep getting better and better as the season goes along.
And that, I believe, is the first road game for Highland this year. They've had two straight home games to open the season, so they go on the road. Not very far on the road, but
it's right up Bridge Road.
Yeah, I mean, but still not playing the friendly confines of Hornet Stadium. So therefore, we'll see. I mean, anything happens when you go on the road and you're the visiting team.
Well, I'm interested in seeing what Coach Gibbons will have cooked up for the sophomore sensation quarterback Joey Marusik over for North Royalton, and Zach Antonio. He had a really good season last year, and he's starting out this year. Just as well, so it's going to be, and obviously Highland has multiple weapons too that Duffy is quite familiar with.
Yep.
All right, moving on. Another cross contest that Josh discussed earlier. Twinsburg 1-0. They hosted the 1-0 Solon Comets. This turned out to be a close one at the end, as Josh said. Solon did jump out 20-7 lead going into the fourth quarter. Twinsburg's only score up to that point was a 9-yard touchdown run by Isaiah Savitt. Tigers quarterback Adam Vandermatter did find Savitt for a 9-yard touchdown reception after one of the aforementioned long Solon scores. Vandermatter then hooked up with wide receiver Christian Edgerson for a 48-yard touchdown to close the gap to 26-21. After Twinsburg's deed held, they got the ball back with just under 2 minutes, but Vandermeyer did throw the interception to end the threat, and Solon comes away with a 26-21 win. Those big plays really hurt Solon, or really hurt Twinsburg from Solon's talented athletes. With the loss, Twinsburg falls to 1-1. They were going to travel to 0-2 Aurora in another Suburban League crossover contest. Solon's 2-0. They're going to look to avenge a loss. Last year's loss to host Stowe Monroe Falls in Week 3. All right, we have another number 1-0 Stowe Monroe Falls. They travel to 1-0 Kent Roosevelt Rough Riders in another Suburban League crossover contest. Stowe's offense really got done on the ground. They rushed for a total of 262 yards. Senior quarterback Corian Rice led the Bulldogs, completing 15 of 23 passing for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 2 touchdowns, covering 9 and 15 yards respectively. Solon's defense were able to get a couple interceptions, one of which did set up one of the touchdowns, en route to a 37-14 win over Kent Roosevelt. Stowe improves to 2-0. They're going to host Solon in Week 3. Kent Roosevelt's 1-1. They're going to travel to Ravenna. Last and certainly not least, the 1-0 Wadsworth Grizzlies hosted the 0-1 Worcester Generals, and this one was over in the first quarter. Defensive back Brett Randolph blocked and recovered a Generals punt in the end zone on the very first drive of the game to put the Grizzlies up 7-0. From there, it was the Joey Bachman show. Quarterback threw for 2 touchdowns. He ran for another to put the Grizzlies up 28-0 after the first, and they ran away with a 47-0 shellacking of Worcester, which is a team beset by a myriad of injuries.
Yeah.
Bachman completed 17 of 25 passing for 244 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he also added 9 carries for 88 yards and a score. Wide receiver Mitchell Blackburn caught 6 passes for 59 yards and a touchdown, and running back Brock Snowball rushed for 2 scores, covering 8 and 4 yards. The Grizzlies' defense forced 2 turnovers in addition to a block punt. With the win, Wadsworth improves to 2-0. They are going to travel to Kenneth Dukes Stadium to take on the 1-1 Medina Bees. Worcester is 0-2. They're going to host 2-0 Dover. As far as the player of the week is concerned, my player of the week would be Stowe senior quarterback Corian Rice, 15 of 23 passing for 178 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also 2 touchdowns on the ground. So he accounted for 5 touchdowns total in their win over Kent Roosevelt.
Very impressive.
And you know what was interesting is you had a Wadsworth player named Snowball. That has to be the brother of an earlier Snowball that used to play there. So they're just continuing the tradition there in Wadsworth.
Just snowballing out there in
Yes.
Wadsworth.
Yes. Please, more dad jokes than puns.
Thank you.
You know, I was at practice the other day, and this was a good dad joke by one of the coaches. I'm not going to say his name for fear of retribution. So DeMonte was practicing yesterday, and he was struggling a little bit on the kicking side. And I was like, hey, Nick, you're rushing a little bit. And the coach goes over and says, he's not Russian, he's Italian.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Man.
It sounds like Yarwood.
Ultimate. No.
No?
No.
That's Penzoni.
No, that would not be Yarwood. Not the Yarwood that I know. Yeah, so very solid action for the division for Suburban League National Division. We still got 4 2-0 teams, a couple of 1-1s, and a couple of 0-2s. So I'll swing it over to my my colleague, my compadre, my cohort. He's a little under the weather here, but he's going to power through it. We got to give him some chocolate milk afterwards.
Yeah, something.
Sean Duffy with the Suburban League American Division.
All right, thank you, Ed. We'll start off with Euclid traveling to Aurora, and as Josh touched on earlier, quarterback for Euclid, C.J. Hale, and junior Drayvon Lindsay just had a game, or really a first half for the ages. The two combined for 189 yards and 3 touchdowns on the night. Euclid scored 27 points in the first half. Aurora only got on the board in the first half thanks to a 26-yard interception return by senior Nate Smirsiak. I'm probably butchering that, but I'm sorry. Aurora did attempt to take advantage of the penalty-laden second half of Euclid, but unfortunately was not able to complete the comeback. Aurora was led by senior quarterback Evan Fromwiller, who had 142 yards with 1 rushing touchdown and 1 passing touchdown. Aurora falls to 0-2 in the season. They will host Twinsburg in Week 3. Moving on to...
Wait. With Sean, with this voice, just need to have...
I mean, are you gonna lay a bed down for me?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
See if we can get it here.
Oh.
Stand by.
You're throwing me off now.
Sean Duffy, everybody.
Sean Duffy.
Doing the Suburban League American Division.
Moving on down to Barberton, where the Magics welcomed in Akron Kenmore. Not much really to say about this one, guys. Barberton got the lead early, and they did not let up. Fun fact for the Barberton out there, Barberton's defense has not surrendered 1 single point in 2 contests in the first 2 contests of the season.
Oh, my.
That's a fantastic quote.
I'm sorry, Sean.
Barberton improved to 2-0 and will travel to Cuyahoga Falls in Week 3. Copley looked to bounce back from a Week 1 loss as they welcomed in Akron Firestone, and Copley was able to utilize a really impressive performance by running back Blake Traylor. He was able to get on the board early with a 14-yard touchdown run, and he was able to add to the lead with three other touchdowns later in the game. The Indians were also spearheaded by a pick 6 from a Copley defensive lineman, Bryce Traylor. Don't know if there's relation, but apparently the Traylor boys got in the end zone all night Friday night against Firestone. Copley improved to 1-1 on the year, and they will travel to Uniontown Lake to take on the Blue Streaks in Week 3. Moving on to the game that Ed so eloquently covered was Stowe Monroe Falls traveling to Kent Roosevelt. And as Ed mentioned, Corian Rice had a pretty good game against the Rough Riders. Rough Riders quarterback C.J. Anderson was able to get on the board with 2 passing touchdowns, but it was all for naught in this game as Stowe Monroe Falls came in and really imposed their will on the Rough Riders. Kent Roosevelt falls to 1-1 on the year, and they will travel to Ravenna in Week 3. East Lake North traveled into Revere, and Revere, again, another team looking to bounce back from a disappointing Week 1. They were able to ride the coattails of running back Matt Busser, who was the focal point of the Minutemen offense with 22 carries, 129 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Revere quarterback Nate Klonowski threw for 101 yards and a touchdown, and Revere cruised to an easy home victory against Eastlake North. Revere improves to 1-1, and they will host Akron Firestone in Week 3. Last week's Player of the Week, Ty Shannon, was back at it again for Talmadge as they welcomed Ellett into their friendly confines. Shannon rushed for 76 yards and 11 carries to lift Talmadge to their second victory in as many games. Shannon broke for a 16-yard touchdown to help his team go ahead 21-0 with 3:03 left in the third quarter, and that was all she wrote pretty much for that game as Talmadge improves to 2-0, and they will travel to take on Coventry in Week 3. And as Josh mentioned earlier, the Medina Bees traveled into Highland for the very first time in school history. This was an interesting matchup because, again, these two programs, while close distance-wise, had never matched up on the varsity football field. Medina was missing three of their top offensive weapons and were attempted to throw the kitchen sink via formations at the Hornets. Jake Rogers and Jake Tecco, and unfortunately, let me back up. The Highland defense was ready for all of it. They stopped Medina at every turn. Whatever formation they had, Highland had an answer. Highland's defense has only allowed 128 yards rushing on 65 attempts and haven't been scored on in the first half in 2 games. The Hornets finished with 8 tackles for loss, including 2 sacks from Ethan Gerding, a sack from Max Baer, Evan Castellanos had a sack, and Ryan Axe had a sack. To go with pass breakouts by Jake Sir Luis, and the Highlands defense was able to pretty much crush the spirit of the Bees throughout the night. The Highland offense took advantage of a stellar defensive effort in the first half, and Medina did, however, slow them down a little bit in the third quarter going into the fourth quarter, but again, the Hornets had that game well in hand by that point. Jake Rogers, again, had a very, very solid performance on all sides of the football, sneaking into the flats for a 9-yard reception to go along with his 92 yards and a touchdown reception. He added a 53-yard punt return for a score en route to 194 all-purpose yards. Running back Brent Pronikvar broke at least 10 tackles during an 18-carry, 139-yard, 2-touchdown night, and Highland quarterback Matthew Ernest connected on his first 8 attempts before ending up 15 for 23 with 191 yards and 2 touchdowns on the night. Highland is now 2-0 and will again continue their winning ways against 2-0 North Royalton next week for their first true road game. Wanted to go down south and touch on the Buckeye game as they traveled into Rocky River, and again, they're getting pretty consistently boring. They're going in and dominating teams. That's what Buckeye's been doing. Another week, another dominating performance. Justin Kennedy was the man for the Bucks. He had 170 all-purpose yards, scoring twice. Once on an 82-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, and second on his 5-yard touchdown run around the end. Buckeye running back Dominic Monaco finished the game with 55 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Austin Beer also got in on the running game as he chipped in with a touchdown run as well. Buckeyes defense again with a stellar performance, holding Rocky River to just 152 yards rushing and just 75 yards passing on the night. Buckeye improves to 2-0, and they will travel to Cloverleaf for a Week 3 matchup. In my Week 2 Player of the Week, I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Highland defense. That's a fantastic performance against a team that was literally throwing everything in their playbook at you, and you denied them not only points, but you really denied them the ability to move the ball at all. From all accounts, according to the fantastic reporting from the Medina Gazette, the defense was able to handle anything Medina threw at them and then some, and was able to come out on top. So, to the Highland Hornets defensive unit, you guys get my Week 2 Players of the Week.
Very nice.
Yep.
Yeah, they're very good defense. And offensively, they just have a lot. They can hit you from all different angles.
Yeah.
And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're going to progress. It's gonna be a great game against North Royalton, as we talked about, and then we'll see what happens when they get into conference play against some of the big boys like Aurora and Barberton and Copley. I'm really interested in seeing how they're going to do against them, against those teams.
Yeah, Highland did this last year. They had a pretty impressive non-conference season with that loss to Brunswick early, but then rebounded pretty well with pretty strong performances in Week 2 and 3. But it all changes once you get into conference play. One thing I am looking forward to is for the past couple weeks, Jake Rogers for Highland has had a fantastic week, and every week he's making his name at the top of my list for Player of the Week. The guy's doing it on all sides of the ball. I'm talking offensively, defensively, and special teams. He could be the key to what North Royalton. If you can stop Jake Rogers, you have a shot. But the way this kid's playing ball the first 2 weeks of the year, he looks to be the kind of the heartbeat of that defense, and also a very, very good contributor on offense. And I'm very, very impressed with Brent Ponigvar. Again, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, I apologize. Just a steady, running back in that system that allows them to kind of control the tempo, and along with that defense can really frustrate a lot of opposing teams.
Nice job, Sean. You made it through.
Yeah, barely.
And we'll see what happens in the Suburban League throughout the year. When we come back, we're going to talk about our game of the week last Friday, which was Berea Mid-Park. They were 0-1 against the 0-1 Westlake Demons. And we'll talk about our Week 3 game of the week as well. All coming up. We're Sports on Tap. It's our Ohio High School football coverage.